What if you were born into a prison that was so perfectly designed that you didn't even realize it was a prison? If you are watching this video, you can probably already sense that the identity you've been given isn't who you truly are. In this video, you'll discover what it means to be born into a programmed reality that shapes your thoughts, beliefs, and your behavior, and how you can escape. Everything you're about to watch is part of a puzzle, and the piece that makes it all click only reveals itself at the end of this video. So if you stop halfway, you'll miss the one insight that pulls everything into focus. This video does not offer you comfort, but it will give you clarity. So if you're interested in that type of wake-up call, please subscribe to my channel, and I have hundreds and hundreds of videos to help you on your awakening journey. And I would also really appreciate it if you like this video so that we can get it out to as many people as possible. Now, I want you to answer these two questions in your mind. So question number one is, are your core beliefs your own, or were they shaped by your environment growing up? And question number two is, if you had been born into a completely different culture, in a different country, and to a different family, do you think you would have the same attitude to life as you do now? So I already asked these exact questions to my supporters, and the results were fascinating. So near the end of this video, I'll reveal how they answered, and together we can compare their responses to what you just told yourself. And when we get there, you might see your own answer and this entire reality a little differently. You probably think that you were raised with certain values, but what happened was you were actually given a script. So from the moment you were born, something really strange happened. You entered into this world crying from pain and from shock, but also because you knew that something in this reality wasn't quite right. But obviously, as a child, we don't have the vocabulary to express that. So when consciousness agrees to come here, the soul enters into a body. And while in the womb, the fetus is subject to programming through the mental and emotional state of both the mother and the father. And once the baby comes into the world, that programming starts to ramp up, and it compounds exponentially over time. And that is how the Matrix confines the God mind into a prison cell of illusion that it perceives to be real. Control of God's consciousness starts when the parents pass on their own programming to the child. So the parents have been through a rigorous perceptual programming operation, and their infant offspring is about to face the same fate. So for example, Christian will raise their child generally as Christians, atheists as atheists, Sikhs as Sikhs, and so on and so on. Very, very few individuals allow their child's mind to be free, which is what it should be. We should all be free and even encouraged to pursue our own sense of reality. But generally, we're not. And the reason is because if 8 billion individuals pursued their own sense of reality, those in power could not control the masses. So instead of allowing a child's mind to be free, most of the time it is given a few years with the parents, then it enters into a stage of programming that we call the education system. And the truth about the education system is that they don't teach the individual how to think, they teach them how to submit. And the child is told when to eat, when to speak, what to learn, how to behave. And if that child questions any of these rules, it's labeled as they're labeled as disruptive, and sometimes in more extreme cases they are diagnosed and isolated. And while the child is in this system, they are tested, they are measured, they are given a score, and if they follow the rules and meet the expectations, they are rewarded with good grades and university offers, and eventually a good job where they are basically expected to support and continue in the same system that shaped them. And all of that distracts us from really important questions such as, what is the Earth, really? And the answer is that the planet that we live on is just a small part of a much larger ecosystem of energy around us. And modern scientists have called that energy system the electromagnetic spectrum. And the electromagnetic spectrum is basically all of this universe. And they have also discovered that human beings can only sense a very, very small part of that energy system. So to put that into context, visible light, which is basically the human experience, is 0.005% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And our eyes can see less than 0.0035% of that 0.005%. So in other words, we are blind. But we still build our beliefs and our institutions and our societies based on what we think we can see. And our experience on Earth then becomes a reflection of those limited beliefs, and those limited beliefs become a mirror, and that mirror becomes a prism or the matrix. And without higher states of awareness, or without a way of perceiving beyond the visible light spectrum, what we call life on Earth becomes a cleverly disguised limit of perception. And it's not just that we are limited in this reality, those limits are constantly taught and they are constantly rewarded. One of the best ways to limit and influence how consciousness behaves is to give it a label. So labels we are given include, but are not limited to, our name, our gender, our race, our religion, our nationality, our profession, and so many more. And they all come with built-in expectations. And if any of us step outside of the rules or expectations, there are consequences. So many people end up just staying quiet and going along with what everyone else is doing, not necessarily because they agree, but because they don't want to lose that connection or that safety net. So where is God in all of this? Imagine a giant mirror shattering itself into millions or maybe 8 billion pieces. Each piece would still reflect the mirror, but only partially. So God is that mirror, and collectively we are all fragments, forgetting that we came from that same original mirror. So the true you is not your physical body, it is not your personality label. The true you is part of a single unified presence that most people in the West have called God. But for God to experience life in a personal and individual way, that larger awareness had to divide and narrow itself to take on the appearance of separate beings. And God did not create this experience of separation just for beauty or peace or joy, but for novelty in the broadest sense. So consciousness wanted the ability to experience what it had never experienced before. And that includes good things like pleasure and wonder, but it also includes negative things like pain and confusion and limitation. When consciousness is whole and complete and unified, it is beautiful, but there are no opposites, and there's nothing to contrast itself with. So through separation and through forgetting itself so through separation and through forgetting itself temporarily, it can experience what we call duality. And that kind of contrast isn't always nice, but it is always meaningful because it allows for growth to happen in a certain way that cannot happen in a static state of eternal completeness. But this process of consciousness dividing itself, even for the purpose of exploration, can go very wrong. And all we need to do is look at the darkest corners of the human experience for evidence of this. So it is really plain to see here on Earth that the line between divine exploration and getting trapped inside something deeply broken can easily be crossed. So if we, as sparks of awareness, descend too deeply into separation without remembering who we are, we become vulnerable to manipulation. And that manipulation does not just come from the world and from its institutions, but from non-human entities like the archons. And the archons are parasitic consciousness forms that feed off of our forgetfulness. And their power doesn't come from physical force. It comes through manipulating consciousness. So when the God source is on this journey of separation, the archons come in and convince that fractured mind that it is this powerless, sinful entity that is undeserving unless you follow their rules through their institutions that they create, which is a lie that many fall for. For the vast majority, life will unfold within the boundaries of the system that they are born into. So within the boundaries of the matrix. And their sense of morality will be shaped by their family and the media and the institutions in this reality. And they will rarely question these influences because biologically the human mind is wired more for survival than truth. And true awakening, or what we might call becoming lucid in the dream of life, is really rare because it requires a deep reconstructing of how you see yourself and other people and the world. But eventually every soul will develop that awareness and they will have the energy to leave this simulation. However, it takes most people many, many lifetimes because this system operates in cycles, and that cycle includes a memory wipe. And these life cycles that us humans live isn't always negative. It's possible to have a beautiful human life. But if the soul doesn't recognize the patterns of what is going on, it may continue on its earthly journey longer than what is necessary. And while we're on that subject, people always ask me when I create these types of videos, why can't we just pull the plug on our own experience? And that is because that is one of the fastest ways to stay trapped in this reality. Choosing to exit life through a state of despair is built on the misunderstanding that the world we live in is just physical. And this reality is not a physical reality. It's a vibrational projection of frequency that the soul must rise through energetically. And to do this, the soul must have a certain amount of energy. And the soul only gains that energy by embodying certain attributes like clarity and self love. So imagine someone pulling back on a slingshot. There's a certain amount of tension that you need in a slingshot for the object to go and propel forward. And if we, uh, you know, cut our experience short on our own, what we're doing metaphorically is cutting the tension that we need to push our soul where it needs to go, and it hasn't got enough energy to rise out of this reality, so it stays trapped, and it recycles through once again. And then there are also these archons, these invisible controllers that have a lot of influence in this reality and have a lot of influence over our lives. And if they sense that there's a certain experience that keeps you in a low vibration, what they will do is they will put you in another situation where you're vulnerable to the same experiences, so that you will relive it over and over again. So the best thing to do in those situations is to go through the lower emotions, go through the uncomfortable times, and trust that when you do hit rock bottom, the only way is up, and the journey back out of those situations is is always much more powerful. As they say, the comeback is always greater than the setback, and that's the energy that we need to get ourselves out of here, and that is the only way to do it. And that might be hard for some people, who, especially if you're going through a difficult time at the moment, but I promise you it's not impossible. So back to our question from the beginning. I asked, are your core beliefs your own, or were they shaped by your environment growing up? And if you have been born into a completely different culture, in a different country, and to a different family, do you think you would have the same attitude to life? Here are the results. Almost 80% of people said that if they were born in a different country and into a different culture and family, that they would have a different attitude about life. And that shows us that most people kind of know that who they are is shaped by their surroundings. But here's the twist. In the other question, most people said that their beliefs are their own. So, which is it? Were you shaped, or did you choose them yourself? The truth is that you were shaped first, and then later, many of my supporters started calling these shaped beliefs their own. So it's a bit like someone giving you clothes to wear every single day since you were a baby, and then one day you say, this is my personal style. Is it really your personal style, or was it picked for you before you even knew how to choose properly? These answers show us that most of what we think is real and what we believe has been programmed into us by our culture or the matrix. And most people never really question it. They just call it me, themselves. And that is the invisible prison. It's ideas being planted so deeply into the mind that you forget that they're not yours in the first place. But what we have to remember is that you are not the mind, you are not the body, you are the soul. And the soul has never been trapped. It's always been there waiting for you to remember. Leaving this reality is entirely possible, but the desire to wake up has to be stronger than the subconscious pull to stay asleep. So, let me know how you answered these questions. Did you agree with my supporters or did you say something different? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.